Johnny, how's it going, buddy? How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic. We're
Good.
just breaking down this 2-0 victory for the Maple Leafs last night against the Lightning. What were some of your major takeaways from that game?
Well, I thought the Lightning started off really good. I thought Hildeby kind of kept them in that first period and kind of changed the momentum a little bit. And I know you were just talking about Troy there. He had that unbelievable save on the goal line there. I think that really could have changed the momentum. And, I think the second period kind of got away from the Lightning and the Leafs kind of took it to them. But I thought both goalies played well. There's a lot of chances for both teams, but, it was a low-scoring affair.
Talk about, if you can, just from the player perspective, that it's been an up and down start for the Leafs up until recently, and now they're on this stretch, big win as we just talked about against Tampa last night. But to see them go on this bit of a stretch here where they're piling up the W's, there's more confidence. Is it just a matter of, hey, it just takes a little bit of time and we put a couple together and now we can start rolling here? How does that confidence start to build to see teams and their players playing better in a longer stretch over several games?
Yeah, I think we've always said, one of our biggest mottos is easier to stay on a roll than get on a roll. And then it just means, to get those wins at the first points, it's tough. But once you get the confidence, once you get, it just seems like you get those bounces more often. And when you do that, wins start piling on. It's a little bit, more fun in the locker room. Practices are a little bit more lighthearted, and everyone's just in a better mood. And when you're like that, I feel like that's the best time to play, that everything just kind of comes naturally to you. And, when you're losing, sometimes you're a little too tight on the stick. And, when you're piling on the wins, it's always a good feeling. So it's good for the Leafs to be able to do that. And now they're super close in the conference. I mean, it's pretty much anyone's game going into the playoffs here.
Yeah, the standings are so fascinating. We'll get to that, but I want to get sort of your breakdown on Dennis Hildeby. And there's always a fascination in this league. It always seems to happen to the Leafs, by the way. It has in recent memory, where somebody will get called up and they have no book on the guy and he steals the show. But it was refreshing to see the Maple Leafs do that to another team. What was your read on Hildeby, and how difficult is it as a shooter to not really have a book on a guy the way Hildeby's only played a couple games in this league so far?
Yeah, I mean, in the regular season, you don't focus too much on goalies, I suppose, when you play against the different ones. So having a book on a guy doesn't really mean a whole lot. But he came in and did an extremely good job. He's a tall, athletic goaltender. He was moving around the crease really well. He was going side to side. Good on his angles. I think he had that really good pad save on Jurgensen there in the first period from side to side. And I don't know if he's capable of doing that if he isn't as big and athletic as he is. So he looked extremely good. I think the Leafs have a good one in him, and he had a really good game last night.
You touched on just how crazy and tight the standings are. And, the Leafs are, 12th in the East, but they're 2 points out of a playoff spot, 2 points out of third, 2 points behind Tampa, 3 points out of first. What do you make of this division right now and just how everything is just so tight still at this moment?
Yeah, I think it's great. I'd much rather division conference that way, just because every game matters. You can get on a roll for a week or two, and then all of a sudden you're in the top of the standings, and vice versa. You could, lose for a week or two and you're in the bottom. So it just makes everything mean so much more. And, I think it just kind of shows a parity of the league of how good teams are being right now. There's not really any teams tanking. Every team's solid from top to bottom. Every team has 4 lines that can play. And, there's injuries that happen, but, there's a lot of guys stepping up and playing different roles. Especially, I know Tampa's had a lot of injuries and had a lot of, kind of a rotating carousel of guys. And I think it says a lot about the skill of the league, though, that guys can fit in right away.
Ty, I think it's really cliche in the NHL world. We talk a lot about pacing yourself just to get to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Like the Panthers are a prime example of that. You guys, year after year, would just make the playoffs, get into the dance and do your thing. But how would you describe that as a player? Like, how does a team truly pace themselves? You clearly don't go out there and try to lose games, but is it all about the process?
It's about how you play. I think that's the biggest thing. You can't expect your A game every single night, but you have to be doing the right things. It's, you have fundamentals that you're preaching in video, preaching in practice. And as long as you're doing the little things that you think is going to be the recipes for success in the playoffs, I think that's what every team kind of focuses on. And yeah, you want all the wins, you want to win every single game, but I think the most majority biggest thing is just to play the right way. And if you're doing that, you can handle a few losses that you feel like, you maybe should have won. But in the end, it's all about that. And it is a long season. So you can't get too high, can't get too low. You just got to keep on working.
And you got to get everybody contributing, right? Like what made you guys so successful in Tampa was just utilizing, you touched on it before, all four lines. Toronto, if we cycle back to the Leafs, their bottom six is starting to roll now. You're starting to see more production out of them, more effectiveness out of them. If you could touch on the importance of that from Toronto's perspective to make sure that their bottom six guys are doing the little intangibles and the extra things that are needed to win, and how important, if you can describe that, for a championship caliber roster.
Yeah, to win a championship, you have to play roles. I mean, there's certain things that every guy has to do. I mean, whether it's, maybe you're going to be a little bit more defensive. Maybe you're the offensive guy. Maybe you're a PP. Maybe it's you're just going to be the guy on the forecheck and hit. Everyone has to know their roles, has to be defined. Every player has to realize what that is. And sometimes you may not like your role, but to be a championship team, you have to play it because it's going to be whatever's going to help the team succeed the most is what's going to be most beneficial. And, when you get all the guys playing, you can't be a top-heavy team and go in playoffs and try to win. It has to be all four lines. And, from our championship teams that we had, it was any other given night that a different player was going to step up, a different line was going to step up and contribute. And that was the reason why we won. We could count on everybody. If you had an off night, we knew someone was going to be there for us.
Always helps when you have that Vasilevsky guy, that Hedman guy, that Kucherov guy, that point guy. Dare I go on? But boys, I took it on the chin. I think it was a couple weeks ago on Twitter, which we all know is a fucking cesspool to begin with. But I said I took the last decade for granted for this Maple Leafs team, and I got a lot of response saying, "What exactly did you take for granted? Like 2 playoff series victories?" That's a good rebuttal, I'll be honest. But as somebody who played against the Leafs in the height of the Core 4 era, how shocked were you, just as a player in the league, that team was never able to really push through and get anywhere in the playoffs?
I mean, they're a really good team. They had a lot of skill. They had a lot of talent. I think the biggest thing was, like you said, the roles. There was times where I think maybe it could have been defined a little bit more for them, a little bit risky. Then I think that costed them a little bit. And that was one thing that we always said when we played Toronto is that we were just going to be patient and let them kind of make the mistakes. And then we're just going to try to pounce on it after that. So they had a ton of skill, ton of talent though. And they were a team that, if you're going to have an off night against them, they're going to make it pay. So you got to play a very smart game and quite frankly, a boring game against them in order to win because, we did have a lot of skill. We had a lot of talent, but we didn't want to go skill and skill against them. There's just different ways that we wanted to win. And we had to really focus on that.
You've got, when you guys were rolling, John Cooper, you have him behind the bench, and that presence and that messaging was so impactful. Toronto's got a guy in Craig Berube who's won as well, one with St. Louis. How important is it to have a guy behind the bench as your head coach, just relaying the right message for you guys? Everybody's group is a little bit different, obviously, but just relaying whatever message resonates with that group. How important is it to have that presence and to have a guy who's not afraid to just give you the gears when you need to hear it?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think it's one of the things that I probably learned the most throughout my career is how big of a difference a good coach makes. I mean, it really starts up top. It starts, he starts all the traditions, all the, fundamentals, all the things you really have to focus on. And when you have a coach that has all the details and kind of makes the game a little bit easier for you to play, it's huge. And, it's his job to be able to kind of put you in the right roles. And once you get in those roles, he's trying to detail everything and make it easy for you. And, one good thing about what Coop had done is we kind of built on that year after year. And, then we had some really good leaders in our locker room, and not only the people with season A's, but really just everyone that was a part of it. And there was a lot of times towards the end of my career there that, Coop wouldn't even come into a locker room. He just knew that the players knew what we had to do. And we had a lot of guys step up and talk and, we kind of coach for us in a way, just because Coop had so much faith in that he's, taught us everything. And I think that goes a long ways. I think it shows a lot of trust in your room that everyone's on the same page. And once you get to the playoffs, that's all that matters. Everyone needs to be gelling and vibing for each other. And, I don't know anyone better in the league than Coop at that.
The real life Gordon Bombay. He loves it when I call him that. But I want to get just your overall thoughts on this Maple Leafs team. We talked about this turbulence to start the season. It really feels like they found their footing. They started 10 goals in the last 7 games. Answer honestly, and I know you will, being a former player in this league, but do you think this roster, this team is built more so for the playoffs as opposed to the regular season? Like, do you get that feel? Watch them at least the way you did last night?
Yeah, I think they have a really good roster. I think they have some guys that, play physical, play with a chip on their shoulder. I know they have a few injuries that you mentioned before, but, I think if the goaltending continues to be good like it was last night, and, they're starting to score some goals, I like the fact that Toronto's able to win a 2-0 game. I think that says a lot about a team when you can get those wins. I would rather a 2-0 win than a 7-4 win or something like that going into playoffs. It just means a lot more that you can play that team defense, and it seemed like they did that. I mean, if you look at Tampa, they had quite a few shots, but really they're kind of perimeter. They didn't really get into the inside a whole lot. Outside of that first period, they didn't really have any odd man rushes, that kind of thing. And that's what you really want as a team. And, I really thought that they've been playing well, the Leafs. And obviously it's still pretty early in the season, but if they can keep building on this and get to where they want to be, I think they could be a really, a good team in the playoffs.
And Ty, I think you're fortunate enough to an extent to play in Tampa, where the media spotlight's a bit different than I would say here in Toronto. And everybody's trying to point the finger. People are trying to fire people on a daily basis. Recently, I don't know if you know this, but I guess Newsy, Derek Lalonde was the issue with this team. But now those people have been very, very quiet because, again, they've started 10 goals in the last 7 games. So what was it like to work alongside Newsy on that Tampa bench there?
Oh, I love Newsy. He's a guy that just was very lighthearted. He kept the vibes great on the ice or in the locker room. He's a very smart guy. He was one of the ones that led a lot of our video sessions, kind of broke things down for us, whether it be as a team or as one-on-one. So I think Newsy's a great coach. We were sad to see him go from Tampa there, but he's a good guy to have in the room for sure.
Just wanted to wrap by asking you about the big boys, man. Like, my major takeaway as somebody, who has watched this Lightning team very, very closely. In fact, I haven't told you this, but I have a signed jersey from a couple years ago, and I believe your autograph is on there. So I'm going to put it on eBay after the show. But what's it like being around like these absolute stallions, man? Like, because I think if there's one thing I've noticed with this Maple Leafs team, they lack that like oomph, like that swag, that confidence. Like, I'm watching Cooch snap it around last night. Hedman just back from injury. When Vasi, the big cat's in there, like, there's just this confidence, this swagger. So what's it like being around those types of players on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, I think confidence and swagger is kind of hurt. So if you don't have it now, it doesn't mean you're not going to have it later. As you continue to play well and get the confidence, that works. But with our team, again, I think it stems from Coop. I think he has a lot of swag, sometimes maybe a little bit too much, but, it just kind of oozes out to everybody. So, Cooch, Vasi, Hetty, Pointer, I mean, the list goes on with those guys, but you just know that they're going to give it their all every single night. And, they can, turn the game and flip of a switch. So, it's fun playing with those guys. It makes you play a little bit better because you're just more relaxed and, hey, we might be down a goal or two, but that's going to change. So, I absolutely love it. They're great guys to be around, and unbelievable teammates. So I was pretty fortunate to play with them.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.